I have just had my first conversation with Andy Mort for this podcast because I have actually been a guest on his podcast, which was a lovely conversation that you so should check out. But make sure you stay on here too. We we speak about the songs that Andy wrote last week. He hasn't written a song since 2018, but 13 of them came through last week. So we go deep into that process. And then we speak about Diana Chapman being a guest on Tim Ferry's podcast, which, if you haven't listened to that episode, do. Um, there's a lot there. And there's a lot here, too. So stay tuned for my first conversation with Andy. And luckily, we have full.
It's like sort of steering a spaceship, isn't it, at times, trying to...
It is, especially when, I've already been in one Zoom meeting with a client, and then I promised him I'd get him stuff before 10 o'clock, and I still haven't had breakfast.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, oh, I need to put my hair up. And, well, here I am. Precisely. Free.
Yeah. Well, good to see you.
It is so good to see you too, Andy. I am so looking forward to this second season um, of these meandering conversations.
Mm.
Um,
I'm so excited to be part of it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's funny how this season kind of just came together in a somewhat different way than the first. Um, so this season is a greater mix of people that I know versus am fairly new to,
Mm-hmm.
which will be interesting. Reddy, I found on Twitter on a Thursday, around noon.
Yeah.
And Friday at 11 a.m., we were recording the first conversation. It was just, sometimes it just flows.
It's amazing, isn't it? Did those conversations feel any different to previous ones?
We went right in there.
Mm.
So it was just, it's fun. So how have you been?
Yeah, I've been well. I'm coming out of a ridiculously unexpected creative week or so. I was staying with some really close friends of mine for 2 weeks. Just sort of wanted to go and hang out with them and embed in their family life for a little bit, and see how that feels. Just coming out of the kind of lockdown situations and just really wanting some connection. And then I found myself writing songs. I am a songwriter, but I haven't written a song other than a song about putting your pants on that I wrote for a kid who was refusing to put pants on in the morning. So I thought I'd help out. But other than that, I haven't written a song since 2018.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I hadn't intended to do any writing last week either. But like my friends have a kind of, I guess, like a creative playroom type thing that the whole family uses. And so they've got like a few instruments set up in there. There's a piano and a bunch of guitars and little ukuleles and things. And I just, in between, I'd been coaching and like I was sort of in between sessions. So I thought I'll just go and have a little noodle around on the piano for a bit, and found myself coming out with like idea after idea. And I was like, "Oh, right, this is happening, is it?" Because I have experienced that in the past. You're like, "Okay, that's what my, whatever it is wants to do." And so ended up doing that through over the course of about 5 days and have 13 new songs as a result of it. So yeah, I'm kind of working out now what is this next little season gonna be musically. N Not intending on releasing an album, but I've got one, so, we will see. So yeah, that's been taking up a lot of my mental and creative energy this week,
Like,
so
can you imagine that? It seems like this is an album that wants to be put out there.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so interesting to and I think there was something because, being, I guess, stuck, like, location-wise through the pandemic and everything, there's been and then I'm kind of exploring, okay, what because my intention has always been to do a bit of traveling. I mean, it was before the pandemic, and so that put a halt on that. And then I was kind of feeling a little bit anxious, sort of earlier this year, thinking, oh, well, what's that going to look like? How can I do it? And so I knew I'm just going to have to make a step and
Mm.
just reach out to my friends and say, like, I'm coming to stay. and and I think something about making that step, like, just opened the gates of some kind of inner creative energy, something or other, and just allowed everything to just come
Come
flying out.
through.
And
Mm.
yeah, it's just, yeah,
S-
just a really lovely experience.
So when you say that you now have 13 songs, is that like you have lyrics for them, you have, intro, outro, verse, refrains, the little in between that, is it like they're there?
They're kind of, um, they've all got structure and they've all got lyrics.
Mm,
Um, that will, I mean, things will change. So, like, I've been kind of reflecting on, okay, what are the patterns that I notice
mm,
in my songwriting process over the years? Because I always think when people ask me, like, so like, what's your process? How do you write songs? Well, I have no idea. It just sort of happens, and it happens differently each time. But there's definite, I think, seasons or phases that go on, and that initial, like, take the editing glasses off and you just let everything flow out. That is what has happened. I've
mm,
got the basic form, the basic structure of these songs, and then now it's kind of just I have to sort of step back and just allow them to germinate a little bit and to marinate in a way, and I'll sort of gently probe what they want to become arrangement wise. So they've all got basic structure, verse, chorus, in between bits, all of that stuff. Um, but if history it has anything to show in terms of my previous ways of operating, then they will change.
mm.
And I'm not rushing it, and I'm not going to force. I was reflecting on it this morning in my journal and seeing it as it's like they've been born and they have their essence, and it's like even when even when a song completely changes, you might change the lyrics, you might change the melody, you might change structure, chords, everything might change, but there's still an essence that it's the same song. It's not this other song. And I was thinking it's a bit like a child, like it's
Mm.
like having a baby that their essence is there. That is who they are, but it hasn't yet fully formed, and you can't force it to walk or to talk. You just got to be there to nurture that initial growth, and then it will find its legs or whatever later on. So that's the phase I'm in, I think.
It's so fascinating because it's like I've never had a song come through me like that. You know,
Mm.
why do they pick Andy? Uh, because it seems like there's people who has songs come through them. I have a lot of other things come through me, but
Mm,
I've never had a song come through me like that. Oh,
that's interesting.
yeah,
What have
it
you
is
had?
kind
What
of
have
interesting.
come through you? What have you experienced like that?
Well, I have writing come through me in that way. Um, Most definitely. And I can have like I'm looking at a mandala that I made that had that saying
Mm,
that I'm not thinking it out. I'm letting it out. I'm opening, the gates and it kind of comes.
yeah,
Um, and some of my writing feels like that, where I sit down and it's just it's like you're kind of struggling to keep up with the
yeah.
fingers because it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I was likening what I was having to do last week as it's almost like putting down buckets all around the house and trying to catch all of these things that are just like pouring out. Because it's such a weird thing to think about in that respect of like something coming through you. Because it sounds, I think, to anyone who doesn't know what that feels like, it's kind of like that's ridiculous. Like what you're talking about, um, and the idea of because I think, yes, I write the songs, but I'm not really writing them. They're just they're using me as like a conduit to be written. Um, but of course, it's not. Of course, you're right. You're in the process. Like it is. You have to be there. I mean, people do talk about that idea of like ideas in the ether, and they'll try and knock on the door of one person, and if they get refused, they'll move on to someone else or
Pass
whatever.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, which I love. But then it won't be the same. It's not like it will be the same song through somebody else as the conduit. It will be their
Yeah.
their voice, like whatever
Yeah.
that looks like for them. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's just such a mysterious, beautiful thing. I love it.
So I'm just curious, so now, you will be helping these songs kind of turn into the shape that they want to be,
Hmm.
right? So are you then the person singing, playing the piano, doing the drums and the guitar and stuff? Or do you are you like, okay, guys or girls, because you have like a band that you say, okay, I need you on guitar and you on drums? Or is it an what happens next?
That's the question. Yeah,
That's the
I have.
question.
Yeah, all of those things are possibilities. So
Okay.
yeah, I've kind of worked in different ways over the years. So there's a couple of albums where I did absolutely everything on them, and then I've got two well, an album and a kind of collection of EPs that became an album where I played with one of my best friends. Ben is a really great guitarist and bass player, and he adds a real creative element to it um, through that. So and another guy, Luke, would play the drums. But I am like drums are my first instrument as well. So
Oh,
it's kind
you're a
of
drummer.
yeah. So that's where I think what will happen with this lot. I feel like the way to go is to get behind a drum kit and build some rhythms and just play around with the feel of songs from that perspective, and give them. Yeah, I think that's where they're going to find their next level of form. Because I mean, I never play now, so even if it's just a chance to go and have some fun on a drum kit, like I think that's what I'm going to do, and then see what it needs from there. I think from again looking at historical things, like moments where I've had similar songwriting processes. I would send the songs to Ben to just add some interesting guitar-y bass parts, because I think these will benefit from that.
Yeah.
But again, who knows? Who knows what it's going to be? Yeah.
So why don't you play anymore? I mean, you said I don't play, but
Well, I mean, I don't have a drum kit anymore, so that makes it slightly harder. And then
why don't you have a drum kit?
I sold
Just
it.
because you
I,
didn't play
well, it was
or it
more
doesn't
space
fit?
reasons. It was
Mm.
space reasons, and I kind of needed the money years ago to fund a tour. Fortunately, I wasn't playing drums on the tour, so that would have been a bit counterintuitive. But, yeah, so and it was also because I used to drum in bands, and there was always this like itch to get out the front and actually sing. I mean, every so often I'd sing from behind the drums, but it's quite difficult. And yeah, I wanted to express myself through piano and guitar and singing and the writing part. So yeah, it's one of those big contradictory things, like I really want this, but I also want this, and I'm not sure whether they can fit together. So yeah.
Cool. Did we speak when we did our conversation for your podcast? Did we speak about Anderson Paak? No.
I don't think
I
so.
spoke about that with Frank, I know, in one episode because he's also a drummer. I haven't had a lot of interaction with Anderson Paak, but there's a Tiny Desk concert with him and his crew,
Oh, cool.
and he's a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And the first song on that Tiny Desk concert blows my mind every freaking time I watch it because there's some cool rhythms going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's singing is in absolutely other rhythms. It's like it's like off. And I cannot, I cannot fathom how you can do that.
Absolute madness.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
like it's like you have to be like schizophrenic. It's like your voice does this one thing and your body is
Mm.
just blows my mind.
Yeah. I guess as a drummer, you've got the benefit of already having to isolate limbs to play different things.
Cause I can imagine you kind of have four selves, right? You have the right hand and the left hand and the right foot and the
Yeah.
left foot, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's just adding on a fifth limb, which is your voice
Yeah.
then.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting because I used to teach drums as well, and I had one experience with someone that they were literally unteachable because they couldn't isolate their limbs at all. So I was teaching like the most basic sort of rhythm at the start, and so it's like 4 with your right hand on the hi hat, and then like 3
The
on the
one and the
snare.
three. Yeah.
And he'd get the hi hat going, and it's like, okay, add the snare on the 3, and the hi hat would stop, and the snare would start, and then it'd be like, yeah, now add the hi hat. And he was like, oh yeah, I thought I was. He hadn't realised he'd stopped
So
playing, and it was this really interesting. We went for about an hour just trying different techniques to try and get these hands playing at the same time different things. It's just you could play the same thing with both hands, but there was no way to.
or one.
Yeah, one or the other. Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think it was one of those. I think I've taken for granted the ability to do that. It's like the rubbing your tummy and patting your head thing. Yeah. I should have
Yeah.
gotten doing that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe. Or he would have been
Yeah,
patting or rubbing.
double patting or double rubbing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that thing about the unteachable or, uncoachable or where sometimes, sometimes my feeling is that it is the willingness is not there.
Mm.
Like the ability is there, but the willingness is not there. And now and again, like what you say here, it seems like the willingness was there, but the ability just, maybe he could have gotten there in another 100 hours, but the amount of
Yeah.
frustration going into that would be about maybe you're better off doing something where you do the same thing with both hands. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's such a good distinction because the will and willingness was definitely there. He was desperate to do it. Um, and yeah, I'm sure there are ways to eventually train your brain to do it, but not in an hour-long lesson.
no,
But then, yeah, the opposite of that, where the ability is there, but there's a blocker to the willingness, or I guess it's when the ego kicks in, and
yeah,
a lack of
get it.
willingness to learn or to explore things that might make you a little bit vulnerable, or feel like, well, I don't actually know that.
Yeah, precisely. And I'm guessing, you could come up against beliefs, my beliefs about myself that just kind of, like you say, they form a block or they lock the door.
Mm,
It's like, no, you're not going through this door because I'm not budging.
yeah.
Uh,
It's interesting when you find those doors, and it's like the resistance to it is telling me that that's an important door to to go through. That there will be a breakthrough just the other side of that door somehow. Yeah. What do you do when you have kind of clients or people that you work with who have that kind of resistance?
well, that's a good question. I think the answer is the boring one. It depends.
Yeah.
Um, but if I if it's a potential coach client, chances are I won't take them on.
Hmm.
You know, if it's just, you try this and no, you try this and no, you try this and no. It's like, okay, you know, sure, we could try another 30 things, but why and what for? And it's like, it probably has me thinking there's no chemistry, but maybe that's really not it. Maybe it is that thing. And it's like,
Mm,
is this a good use of my time and energy?
yeah.
Um, where, in the best of worlds, there's somebody else out there. There's a coach or a project manager or a boss or whatever it is that will slip in under, beneath, behind,
Hmm.
whatever, pick the lock of the locked belief system
Yeah.
in an easier way. Um, if it's people that I work with where it's not a coaching relationship, again, it depends on who it is. We had in a project that I'm working at for the past 2 years, we've had lots of different suppliers involved. And there was one project manager from one of the main machine suppliers that, and
Mm,
then you kind of breathe, and again, step into what's my professional role here? What's my professional needs? And kind of
mm,
biting my finger, biting my tongue, sitting on my hands, not to start to wave and rave and just, but trying to kind of convey so that whatever needs to be done gets done, even if,
yeah.
um, but that can be hard. I probably have the hardest time coping.
Right.
with that, and it kind of, it's harder if it's the willingness that's lacking.
Hmm.
If it's the ability, it's like, okay, then you can take steps to replace them, or, because
Right.
it's like, okay, there's a competency gap, right? But if it's like the willingness thing, uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
how that can just irk me.
Yeah. So there's different layers of that lack of willingness as well, isn't there? 'Cause I'm just thinking, of there are sometimes that shows up as an apparent willingness, like in a conversation or in a coaching session, where it's like, okay, there's a lot of willingness going on here. They're really, they want this. They've got their vision. This is what they want to do. Show up to the next session. It's like, how have you been getting on? Like, what's been going well and whatnot? I haven't done anything. And then that can be a cycle that just repeats and repeats. And the motivation, the enthusiasm is there in the session, and then nothing gets done in between. And it's not because they don't have simple enough steps and things. It's almost like, I don't know, is there an enjoyment of the prospect of doing something, and then actually carrying it out isn't important? I don't know. And then there's the unwilling kind of character within a session or within a conversation, where it's like just basically putting a blocker up about any potential suggestion, any potential action that they might take or whatever. And so nothing is that, well, it's all, no, that won't work. I've tried that before. I've tried everything. That doesn't work. Um, and it's so difficult then to kind of find the things that actually they would commit to doing, or, yeah.
And when my first marriage fell apart quite dramatically, and um, newborn kid, and just a mess. And we went to uh, like family therapy first, to start, not to like get together again, but just to see how we can work around this kid that we were parenting. But
Hmm.
that kind of fell through also. And then we had to, he wanted to start to meet with our kid again. And so we got the help of something that in Swedish is called familjerättsbyrån. So it's like the legal. The other one was the therapeutic way of doing it. And this is kind of the legal way. So you get
Right.
somebody who's like, okay, how can we help you set up, like, you know, um, visitations, and just that type of thing. And going from the one to the other, I'd kind of realized that my ability and my willingness was great.
Hmm.
And I'm also very, I can generate a lot of ideas, and I'm very flexible. So if you have this problem, I'll easily come up with 5 different ways of how to address this, how to
Yeah.
come at it. And I'd realized it didn't matter what I said, because it was the problem that I said it.
Yeah.
So I could say something that he had been thinking, but because I said it, he couldn't. Right. So I just shut down, because I realized I cannot. It has to come from him, purely from him, which had the legal person, the family counselor person, so frustrated.
I bet.
And now I'm seeing this, of course, because she must have felt that I was absolutely not willing at all. Which, in a sense, yes, she's right. I
Mm.
wasn't willing to, how can we solve this? I wasn't willing to do that, because I knew that would shut him down.
Yeah. Man, that's a proper sort of impasse situation, isn't it? Yeah, you can't, anything you say, even if he's thinking it, then gets shut down because you've said it. And yeah, but I can imagine we get into those sorts of patterns without being aware of it a lot. And yeah, just wonder how that sort of translates within professional coaching relationships, whether it's a projection onto the situation of being coached, like maybe running it through a previous experience with somebody else who maybe has come up with ideas or yeah, put blockers on things in the past, and then those patterns repeat themselves, and any time that change is on the horizon, there's a shutdown. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to ponder.
And I was in a conversation not too long ago with somebody who said, um, it's all in how you say it. If he shuts down, it's how you said it. And I brought up this example saying that I could come at things, even before we were divorced, it's like I could be sweet and say it. I could be firm and say it. I could be angry and say it. I could be cajoling and say it. I could be funny and say it. I could be sad and crying and say it. I tried everything possible and it did not matter.
Hmm.
Right. And it wasn't until after the divorce, after this thing, that I finally kind of grasped it's because of me.
Hmm.
It's because I'm sending. It's not how I'm sending. It's that I'm
Is
sending.
that you? Yeah.
It's that I send.
Mm.
And the frustration in that is can be quite substantial, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because it, what can I then do?
Hmm.
Because I am me.
Yeah. Yeah. Properly, hands tied behind your back.
Hands tied behind your backs and mouth gagged and you're blindfold. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
just, I can't even breathe
Hmm.
because it's coming from me.
All in the midst of a highly emotionally charged situation as it is as well, and like, yeah, trying to work through real issues and
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah.
Whereas, I have been in situations where I've worked with people and I can feel that, okay, this just does not work. And then you sort it out. Then either me or the other person has to leave, has to shift, has to, and the easiest way in such a situation is, okay, this isn't working, we'll find something else for you to do.
Hmm.
Or when I worked for a project where we were building a facility in India, and there's a worldview shift or a worldview difference between Europeans and Indians. If and then not just mention sweets or dates, and it's like it's different,
Hmm.
it's very that was very apparent. We're coming at the world differently,
Yeah.
which kind of had this very consultancy rich project go through some kind of natural cleansing. The people who just couldn't, their worldview and the Indian, it just
Hmm.
clash. They said, I'm out. I won't be here. I thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have to act upon that. It was kind of self cleansing, um, which I think was a good thing because
Mm.
then there was no contention there.
Hmm.
There was
Yeah.
nobody who felt like, oh, but I should, it's like, no, thank you, bye.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll find somebody else who can do your things
It's really
and
interesting.
actually enjoy working with it. Enjoy the challenge that was in that project because
Yeah.
it sure had some challenges. Um, and I learned patience. If there's
hmm
anything that that project taught me, it is to be patient. Oh, man. Yeah. Really
Yeah.
interesting.
That's it. That's yeah. I'm kind of seeing the pattern of so like within the kind of marriage therapy or the family therapy situation, and within a project like that, and I guess any kind of relationship where there's a partnership or a relationship that needs to be formed, the issues always come from seeing everything from a personal perspective, or like the clashes of two particulars, like trying to fight for their own side, or trying to, yeah, coming from a place of ego, I suppose. And like, it's really important to have that bridge, that third part that you're both feeding into, that's separate and disconnected from any ego or personal, um, investment or whatever. Um, and so it's knowing, okay, what is the purpose of this? What are we both here to build? What are we both here to reinforce? And I think of that in any relation, like like intimate relationships, partnerships, whatever. It's it's having that the partnership as a separate entity that then means when you're annoyed with the other person, or like really irritated, and that you're irritating them, and everything can descend into a bit of a personal mud throwing thing. It's just having that partnership bit that is like, this is why it's worth it. That this is what we're building here. It's not always going to be easy between us, but it's worth it because of this. Um, and equally, that is the thing that you can gauge. Okay, it's not worth it because we're not. This is no longer anything kind of positive, or whatever whatever values you sort of decide to put
Put
into
on
that
it.
together.
Mm.
And it's having that between, like, almost having those conversations, working out, okay, what is this thing we're building together? In a project, what is the thing that, even though we might have cultural differences, we might see the world differently, what is this bridge that is so important for us to build across those cultural differences? Um, and just coming back to that, during those antagonistic times, or when there's conflict, it's like, okay, this is the thing at the heart of this. How are we serving that? How are we maybe not serving that? And yeah, just taking the individual part out of it can be quite helpful, I think, sometimes.
And quite tricky at times.
hmm
Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can sure be kind of married to my my take, my view,
Yeah.
my feelings, my ideas, my wishes, my hopes, my dream. It's like, um, so it can take quite a lot to do that. And yet it's like in any relationship, if you're just kind of, if you're in that, like there's a habit or a routine. This is how we do. When we get annoyed at each other, this is how we do.
hmm
It always it's like the forms of a song or the structure of a song. It's like, okay, that's how we argue. We have this thing and then this, and then there's this little bridge, and then maybe at the end, a happy ending, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you're lucky, um, or it's just the fade out. It's like if I then or you manages to not do that bridge thing, or put the bridge earlier, or maybe try another bridge. If you do something that is out of the ordinary, you kind of you shake the structure. It no
hmm
longer can just continue because it's A goes to B goes to C goes to D. If you throw in a Q, or you take away the C,
Yeah.
that can be enough to kind of shake it up and
hmm
just, okay, Because then the other person can't respond the way he always does when I always do this thing. It's like, no, if I don't, eat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it's that sort of nurturing that thing and allowing it to change through. It's, I guess it's when you get to like crisis time, it's probably, that's the bridge is too rickety. Like it's all, or it's fallen apart. And it's very, very difficult to, yeah, kind of find that common ground at that point. Um, yeah, I guess it's that proactive, it's those proactive habits of, just checking in. Okay, are we still on the same page? And if that, and not to, guess not getting caught in ruts as well. Like, where you say like, this is how we always do things. This is what an argument looks like. It's got the structure, you know. So I'll get annoyed, then you'll try and, appease me or whatever. Like, then, we go our separate ways, and then we come back together. Like you see those patterns in relationships all the time. It's like, okay, they're in that phase, then this will happen, then this will
Yeah.
happen, and then they will get back together, and pretend that everything's okay, but they haven't actually sorted out any of the core underlying infrastructure of that bridge. Like, it's still
Yeah.
very wobbly. And so it's, that just, connecting over that. What is this? What is the bridge? Is it worth, is it worth our investment? What's keeping us on that bridge? Because often it's not, or sometimes it can be something that isn't actually worthwhile. It's maybe fear of losing it, or something that is, not serving you or serving the other person.
The other.
Yeah.
And have you listened to the episode from Tim Ferry's podcast with Diana Chapman?
I've not, no.
So, in the past weeks, I think it's been out since, I don't know, early October or something.
Mhm.
It popped up everywhere. I saw it in good pods and, in my creative community. And, it's like it kept popping up. People were saying, oh, it's great, listen to it, etc., etc. And finally, I have a coach client who said, "Oh, have you listened to this episode? Because there's a thing that she does that I would love to try on our next coaching call." So I'm like, "Okay, universe, I'm getting the message. I'm gonna listen to this podcast, right?"
Mhm.
So I listened to it, and I've listened to it 2 or 3 times, but it's just it's an amazing episode. It's an amazing episode. I so enjoy listening to her speak because she feels very her, not this is how I'm supposed to be, but rather,
Mm.
peeled off with kind of here I am. And there's plenty of things in it. But what made me think of it here is she speaks about she's been married for like 30 something years to her husband. And at one time, they were very close to divorcing because, as she puts it, he wasn't the man I wanted to be married to. He wasn't the man that I wanted in a relationship.
Mhm.
And, it's like, what do you do then? Well, you go through therapy and, and it's okay. It will lead to divorce because that's kind of the way it goes because I'm no longer the man you want me to be, right? But they had a friend who spoke to her who said, I love you both. If you need to divorce, then you need to divorce. That's fine, right? But I hear you saying that he's no longer the man that you want to be with. You want to be with another man, another type of man. And she goes, yeah, yeah. And she says, but the question is this: who do you need to be for who do you need to be to have him be that type of man? Who do you need to be to invite that type of man into your relationship? And she just went, oh, shit. Right.
Mm.
So that was like, she was constantly running that script. Who do I need to be for him to be able to be the man that I want him to be?
Mm.
Right. So they went into this um, like total makeover of their marriage or reset, saying, I don't, and going, like you said, very, very openly into it, that this might end up with us divorcing, co-parenting, maybe not living together, but being together, or, going our separate ways and just co-parenting, whatever it is, but we can't stay where we are.
Yeah.
The bridge, the infrastructure is not working. Something needs to shift. And 6 months later, she told her husband, saying, you have really changed. And he looks at her, goes, no, you've changed. And
Mm.
of course he had changed too, right?
Yeah.
But it is the same thing. It is
Yeah.
like, okay, if we're always doing this dance, if I introduce new moves, the dance will shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such an interesting story. Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I
they've
suppose
done that
it's,
another 3 times. So 4 times in their marriage, they've done this. Okay, it's reset
I
time.
was going to say it's
Ah,
like, yeah, kind of, it's a breakup with something within the relationship. It's not a breakup of the relationship. It's a breakup with those ruts and those things that you're holding on to, which actually you need to let go, because it's like, well, we're both growing and changing, or we've grown and changed, but our relationship hasn't moved with that. And we need to
precisely.
sort of, yeah, restructure that bridge, break up with that old, start this new, in order to give that margin and that space for whatever
Yeah.
comes next. And yeah, that's such a good example. Mm.
Yeah, and Esther Perel speaks about, everybody has 3 marriages, but you could have that marriage within the same marriage,
Yeah.
which is saying the same thing, but saying it in a more abstract way, where you
Mhm.
go, okay, well, before kids, with kids, after kids, 3 marriages, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you actually do this. Okay, let's gently, you know, unpack this bridge. Let's take it apart
Yeah.
and put, okay, here's bricks and here's beams and here's nails and here's whatever you need, big cement blocks, or, it's like, okay, and then go, what? How do we, do we
Mm.
need it to be a bigger, wider, longer, thinner? What does it need to look like now? What do we want it to look like now
Yeah.
going forward? You know,
Yeah.
here's all of this building material, go
Mm.
for it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes me go, oh,
It's,
I
yes,
want to try that.
it's like, it's a great example of, like, yeah, the creativity of everyday life, the creativity that can be a part of our relationships, and yeah, in all sorts of forms. And so often those, it will be that kind of the one-sided thing of like, I need them to change because I'm changing, or I've changed, I've grown out of this or whatever, without having that sense of connecting to the fact that, yeah, maybe both of you are longing for this, or both of you are feeling that, maybe some sort of resentment or some sense of being pulled back or held back. Um, and it's easy to see it through your own eyes of like, they're holding me back. And it's like, no, actually, maybe it's the fact that this bridge is no longer serving what you both, where you're both at. And that's the thing that you can look at together.
Yeah,
It might
work
be that,
at.
yes, you are going to go separate ways, but there's a strong possibility that that thing that brought you together in the first place is just shifting, and there's a renewal that can go on. Yeah, it's worth looking at.
Mhm. Which is interesting. I'm just reminded of I have a coach client that I've had since for a year now. And the initial set of 5 sessions were okay, this is what's needed, right? The second set of 5 sessions, same thing. That was still what was needed. Now we're coming into the third set of 5 sessions where my client told me that I needed I needed that and you gave me that. Now I've shifted. Now I'm here. Now I need something else from you.
Hmm.
And I'm going, oh, let's play, right? Let's do
Yeah.
this thing because it's fun. Because what she needs is still within my bandwidth to provide.
Yeah.
I can do that frequency too. It's not, then you need to go to somebody else, which it might have been and it might be,
Hmm.
which I think is quite, um, you know, there's no, oh, then I'm failing. There's no sense of that.
Yeah.
Rather just, okay, can we be of service or not?
Yeah.
Um, so now we're in this, and it's a big shift. It's a big shift in what does she need from me now?
Hmm.
Um, so who do I then have to be?
Yeah.
What's the question I ask? How do I ask them? How do I follow up with her in a way so that she is given the space to become that thing that she says, okay, this is the thing. I have this in me. I more of that, please help me make space for that. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, sure. Then I have to hold her differently.
Mm.
Um,
I love that. That's how it's supposed to be. Like that, especially in coaching. It's like that change is a part of that process. Um, so it's something to celebrate when, okay, this is shifting. Like, and I guess that the coaching partnership is the bridge almost between the two of you that, okay, let's
Precisely.
redefine this. Let's redefine how we show up in this and what we're putting into it and what you need me to be. And to give that the foundations for the next phase. If you're sticking with me, great. Like, and I guess, it's just parallels with all sorts of, interactions and relationships. And that's, the point in an intimate relationship where it's like, you don't want each other to be the same as a result of being with each other for indefinitely. It's like, actually, your mixing together is going to lead to change. Hopefully, it's going to lead to that person feeling better about themselves and feeling the growth. And, the growth will hopefully be in you as well and in that relationship. And so things are going to change. And so it's how you're allowing that to happen, how you're making sure that the conditions are there for it to happen, and then to know what that looks like or how you're going to respond when you have those moments of like, okay, something has shifted. What do we need to alter anything here and keep up with that? Yeah.
So have you had that in your coaching relationships with clients where
Yeah.
there's been this
Yeah.
definite like shifting of it's like in the theater. Okay, backdrop shifts. Okay, now we're in the kitchen. We were in the
Exactly. Yes.
forest before, now we're
Yeah.
in the kitchen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had it several times, and like it always fascinates me just to observe my own reaction to it, because there's a certain degree of like, ah, that got sort of like easy, like it was it was not that challenging for me, and then but then the excitement of, okay, we've got a new challenge within this, and wow, like going back to the beginning and thinking, okay, where was this person when we started? What were they talking about? What was on their heart? were the challenges they were facing? What was that vision that they had? It's like, whoa, they've grown so much. And you don't often notice it. It's like it's almost a drift or a gradual adaptation to how things are as you're going along. And it's when you take that time to just pop that pin in and then go back to the beginning, like, whoa, like things have gone so far. And then it would be, okay, like I'll often have a session where it's reflect on that part of the journey and then think, where do you need to go next? Where do you want to go next? What's that going to take? Who do you need me to be in that process? It might be a similar role to before, or it might be a little shift in terms of, am I going to be bringing more kind of exercises to the sessions? Or,
Precisely.
yeah, is it conversations? I love it at the moment. Like I've got a couple of clients with whom I just play and create. So we'll sit and paint during a session. And that will be like the backdrop for really good conversations that then can unlodge things and that kind of thing. But what they realized they needed most was time to play. And that's all mixed in with that, and that will be for a period, whatever the next stage is when that time comes, we'll kind of look at that. But yeah, I love how it's different with everybody as well. And that sort of evolving, changing thing.
It's kind of like having kids. Facebook popped up, this happened 7 years ago or something. And I'm looking at a picture of my son, who's my youngest, who just turned 17 3 days ago. It's like 7 years ago, he was 10.
Yeah.
There's a big shift there.
Mhm.
He looks very much differently than that cute little kid. Um,
Yeah.
so it is fun with those, like you say, revisits or looking back at and just kind of comparing within me, you know,
Mm.
where am I now? Where was I there? What's the difference? Which I
Yeah.
think is one of the reasons why I'm so enjoying rereading some books now this year that I read 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's kind of the same thing, Am I moved in the same way by the same thing?
Mm.
Is there a dip, do I understand it on a different level, deeper, shallower? It's like, do I feel closer to it or further from it? It's
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of this.
Oh, I love doing that. Yeah. I've done that with with a few books recently. And there's been ones where I'm like, how did I read this before? Like, I never understood. And when you have that sort of deepening understanding of something. And likewise, there's been books where I've read them and remember finding them really profound and deep. And then I'm like, this is vacuous nonsense. Like there's no substance to this at all.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, both the signs of growth, and yeah, just really interesting to
Yeah.
think of that relationship with the stuff that we take on board, the input in our lives. Yeah,
Do you read a lot?
I do. Yeah, a fair amount. Kind of haven't been reading anything in depth recently, but I do like to have at least one or two books on the go at any one time.
Yeah. What do you read? Do you read everything or is it like, no, I prefer?
I kind of read, yeah, lots of. I mean, I've been reading quite a lot of like philosophy recently, in particular. Yeah, someone called Todd McGowan, who's not that helpful for growing a business because it's it's all a critique of like capitalism and that kind of stuff. So really fascinating. So yeah, looking at kind of psychoanalysis and like Hegel as a philosopher, and yeah, one of the books has a profound impact is Capitalism and Desire. So kind of looking at where desire is generated in us, and the kind of, the crossovers between the political world and our inner world. And very, very interesting stuff.
And
But I
that
have to
is
ration that.
interesting because because it's so, I speak a lot with my friend Dominic about that, how so much of my wants, I perceive them to come from within me.
Mhm.
And then it's like, yeah, but look at the commercials, look at the, the billboards, or look at the what everybody else is wearing or having or doing or be, it's like,
Yeah,
where does it come into me?
yeah,
How does it come into me? Is it actually me wanting this thing, or is it's in the ether, so
hmm
it's coming through me because, everybody else does this. Um,
yeah, yeah. And I think one of the big takeaways that I've found in terms of having an application in my own relationship with all of that stuff is just that sense of like, is this promising me a sense of like ultimate wholeness and completeness? Do I think if I have that, then I will be completely happy? I'll be completely fulfilled. I'll be completely satisfied. If it is, then that's a lie, because nothing gives
precisely,
you that.
precisely, right?
Yeah. So it's like, it's just analyzing that structure, the structural relationship you have with those promises of advertising, of marketing, of, is that promising more than it could possibly give you? Is it trying to make you believe that life doesn't have pain and struggle and contradiction in it? Because if it
If
is, then
only.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's a funny, especially as a business owner, it kind of it creates all sorts of like, how am I marketing? Am I doing that? Am I over promising? Which is kind of it's a healthy way to think of things. And I don't think I am at risk of that. But yeah, it's just like, am I promising something that can't be delivered in terms of, or could people construe it as, I will be
You promised this.
whole and
Mm.
complete once I've, had coaching from Andy or whatever. It's like,
Mm.
I can assure you won't be, but
Yeah.
you might
That's a
enjoy things a little bit
guarantee. I
more.
can actually guarantee you won't be. I was talking to my friend Caspian yesterday about marketing and about like the tricks that are so rife and that work, and it bugs me that they work, and it's like, ah, this thing of sign up now, before Sunday you get this much off, and
Mhm.
it's one day left, half a day left, 2 hours left, 10 minutes left, go, it's
Yeah,
like that thing, which works,
yeah,
but there's something in me that just goes, it's it feels yucky and sticky and unethical, and it's like, no, I don't. It's like, so I can and then, well, here I am, yeah, I coach. How many people know that I coach? Because I don't do that thing. It's like,
hmm
well, yeah, I have room for a couple of more coaching clients. It's like, I would like to have a couple of more coaching clients, but what am I doing for it? I'm kind of being,
yeah,
you know, and that kind of works so. Now and again, that's actually how I get coaching clients. But so it's like, so how do I do that?
hmm
You know, again, this play of being a business owner. Yeah, I need money on the table. Everybody needs that. How much do we need? That's a question that's also worth asking.
yeah,
And how do I go about it?
yeah.
Do I want to do it the way you're supposed to do it?
Exactly. And it's recognizing that the whole, that everything is linked together as well, and that, manufactured scarcity. yes, it might work. Yes, you might get a load of people in your program or whatever, but also you're going to get a load of people showing up to your program having the energy of that scarcity just bubbling in them, like that anxious urgency that then you have to somehow deliver a solution for, which again is going to be very, very difficult because it's when you see the creation of that urgency and that scarcity, like you've got this long, just imagine the life if you don't do this, what's going to, how are you going to be a massive failure if you don't address this pressing issue in your life? And then they show up to your program like, okay, you're going to give me these answers to all of these massive existential problems that I have. And it's like, oh, right, I'll take your money, but I don't have anything different to offer. Yeah, I kind of recoil at that sort of marketing, and have made a point to, if I feel that, because I do feel that, the urge towards it, like when, as a consumer, you're like, oh, I've got to make a decision now. It's like, if I catch myself in that thought process, I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to make a conscious decision. Even if I feel like I want that thing, I'm not going to buy it, because that's not the energy that I want to be approaching life with at all.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I have a great example where I've been dancing with this. So I have followed Seth Godin's blog for 15 years or
Yeah.
something, right? One of very, very few things that I actually subscribe to and read, even though I far from read everything, but I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since before he started the Alt MBA, which is this online course that he does, he was speaking about it, and I was going, there's something there, right? And then he put it out into the world, and I was, I could have jumped on board because I was one of the people who saw that. It's like, but no, something in me going, no, it's not. It's like, no, it's not the time. And
Yeah.
then more akimbo workshops of various kinds, and I'm going, maybe, but not really. It does, and it hasn't mattered, if it's like sign up now and get a better price, whatever. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I haven't. And then February of last year, 2020, an email came in about the creatives workshop, which was then the first public round of that workshop.
Right.
And something clicked. So I clicked and I read about it, went, oh, this sounds great. Really kind of very openly described. So not it will be this,
Mm-hmm.
here's the agenda, this is what you'll take away, but really like openly described so that it could be kind of anything. And then it was like, press the purple dot and you get a better price. And I pressed the purple dot and it was like, oh, that was a good price. And then it was like, but I'll wait with it. And then the next day, I pressed that purple dot again and it had gone up a little bit. So I went, oh no, I'm going to take this one. So I just took it. So the price increase there got
Yeah.
me to act, but I was closer to wanting this than any of the previous Akimbo
Mm-hmm.
workshops. So I probably would have
Yeah.
signed up anyway, because that's the feeling that I had. And it turned out to be, a lifesaver in COVID
Yeah.
rolling out into the world. And it's just totally shifted my life.
Mm.
I've gotten friends that are so dear and close to my heart
That's cool.
because of this. And the spin-offs have been just amazing,
Mm.
right? And then here's another Akimbo workshop. Here's another Akimbo workshop. Here's another. And no, now I'm an Akimbo alumni, so I get a better price on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I could do just that.
Yeah.
I could just be in these amazing workshops because they are amazing. And he's like, no, I won't. It doesn't matter that here's a really good price or this
Mm.
thing. It's like, no, I won't. I signed up for the story skills workshop that started end of November 2020. And then I'd had like almost 6 months of no workshop.
Mm.
And that was kind of a deliberate, you know, because I get so immersed in them. I go in 100%. I'm in,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, I need to close this window for a while. I need to not do that, one on the back of the other.
Mm.
Um,
Mm. Yeah, I love that sort of hearing so I feel that, yeah, you know when the time is right, when you're getting those things coming through into your field of vision. And it's the difference between, for me, an expansive feeling and a contracting feeling. If it's oh, I need to get that, otherwise it's going to disappear. That's a contracting feeling versus, oh, yeah, no, even though there is because I got this with the qualification that I did in my sort of personal performance coaching. Like, they employed a few of these sort of scarcity tactics, and I signed up despite that, because it was like, no,
yeah.
there's a real expansive feeling that's coming from within me about this, and that's not being generated by them. It's generated by the potential for having this, from my own perspective. But there have been things within that realm where they've tried selling stuff, and it's like, no, that's shrinking me. That's contracting something inside of me, which is making me feel like if I don't have that, then I'm missing out, or if I don't have that, I'm somehow less than, or not enough, or not good enough. And so, yeah, just raising awareness around those kinds of feelings inside is important for me.
Which is, I'm just gonna check to see what a term is that I, oh, oh yeah. I'm reading a book that's called Deeper Dating by somebody named Ken Page or Ken Burns or something. Ken Page. Uh, and he speaks about attractions of deprivations versus attractions of inspiration, which for
Nice.
me is that same. It's
Yeah.
it's different words to the contracting and the expanding,
Yeah.
right? The contracting is the deprivation, is like, oh, I'm not good enough. How can he think that,
Mhm.
I had better, lose 10 pounds, otherwise no one will want, it's like, oh, it's that.
Yeah.
Whereas the attractions of inspiration, like, oh, here's somebody that I can be me with. Here's
I like
somebody
it.
who enjoys all of the facets that are me, you know, maybe not enjoy all of them, but appreciate all of them and want all of them because, and is that opening feeling.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that's the same thing. Love it. Yeah, it's really
and
interesting.
I can tie it together with Diana Chapman and this Tim Ferriss podcast too, because she speaks about whole body yes and whole body no. And then she speaks about the subtle no, which is a no, right? And it's the same thing. The whole body yes is this
Yeah.
opening. And you can listen, you can sense, you can feel it.
Hmm.
So actually not just going up in my head, because I have I have had a couple of instances quite recently where it's been subtle no's and I haven't heeded them. I haven't listened to them. Um, and it's just reminding me to just kind of tune in, you know, because my intellect can talk me out of what my
Yeah.
system knows.
Yeah.
It's like it has been on a pedestal, or, it has been the conductor in my life for such a long time that it kind of goes into this conducting role. Even when I now say, actually, I just want you to be one of the instruments in the orchestra.
Hmm.
You're not conducting.
Yeah.
I'm the one conducting the show. Thank you very much. You sit down. You can play first violin, sure. Right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's like actually taking this on and practicing the sensation of it.
Hmm. That's it.
So, like
Yeah.
you say, actually feeling it. Where is my body now? Am
Yeah.
I, am I hunched down or am I
Yeah.
widening up?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. For me, it's tense shoulders and like shallow breathing. And I'll be like, oh, what's
what's
that?
that?
What's that coming from? And then be able to trace. Ah, okay. Maybe that's linked to that. Maybe that is yeah, whether it's a whole body no or it's just that small, quiet
So,
voice of no. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, love it. I'm going to have to shoot because I have a session at 10:30. So, uh,
Well,
but oh man,
thank
this has
you,
been great.
Andy.
This has been great.
And you know what? We have another fork coming.
Great.
Oh, I've so enjoyed this.
Me
Thank you
too.
for today.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad we have 4 more. So much
So
ground that we can cover.
we'll see where we go.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Lovely.
thanks.